where would you recommend that they start?
It's going to identify what their top areas are, where their focuses are, and where the money is going, and how you as a company fit into that. Sometimes you have to educate federal government as well. I've seen companies come in and they bring 20-page presentation, 30 pages. What you gonna do with 30 pages of presentations for 30 minutes or even 15 minutes? Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. So organization is last. And that's the 5 slides that you just mentioned?
Yes. Slide number 1 is a bottom line.
You gave a couple examples, right, of what people you've seen in the past. What are some of the other things we can improve?
Some of the things that I've seen, they don't have the right.
Okay, great. Now, we were just talking right before we hit the record button about, I said so many people said great things about you, and I was reminding you how we met, and I remembered at the 8A conference, you had a booth down from me.
Yes.
That?
Yes, I do remember that.
Okay. And then someone brought you over to me.
Yes, Mr. Shannon Jackson, who is the Osterblue Director for Health and Human Services.
Okay,
HHS.
great. There you go. No, and actually, someone recently I met with also mentioned your name, Malik Yoba.
Oh my goodness, that's my good friend. You met Malik?
I met him last week, and he says, "Do you know Alice Williams?" And I said, "Well, I know of her. I don't know her." And so he brought your name up last week as well.
So Malik claimed I stalked him 2 years ago at the 8A conference, which I didn't. What actually happened was I saw a gentleman that looked like I've seen before, right?
Mhm.
And I was looking, and then I said, oh, I think he is someone famous. And so I started to go on my phone to Google to see if it was really him. And he walks over and said, why are you taking pictures of me? And we became good friends from that point.
There you go. See, small world.
It's a very small world. He gets around, he's doing some awesome things within the DoD space and introducing his family. So I've been trying to assist and giving them guidance and training and so forth from a government perspective,
right,
as a government employee.
Right. No, that makes sense. So now at the 8A conference, at that time, if I remember correctly, they were telling me that you were coming back to the agency.
Yeah, so not necessarily back from the agency. Let me give you a little bit background about me. I retired after serving 38 years as a civil servant at Department of Defense. I started my career years ago with some very important people who mentored me through my progress. I came in at 16 years old, was a high school senior, and going straight to work at age 16. Eventually took the civil servant test and got a low-level job, starting at a GS2, believe it or not. And fortunate for me, there was a gentleman named Dan Gill. And at the time, Dan Gill was running the DoD Office of Small Business Program. And I was probably a GS4 or 5 by then. And he said, what are you doing in this job? And I was working at DFAS as a voucher examiner. So I was, satisfying people's travel vouchers. He said, what are you doing in this job? He said, did you know you were a leader? And I said, no. He said, you are a leader. He said, tomorrow, bring me your resume. And I went home and cleaned up my resume. And the next day he came in just to pick up my resume. And long story short, had a very successful career as he mentored me. The great thing about what he did for me was not only did he mentor me, but he introduced me to other senior executives at the time that took me under their wings and mentored me through my whole career, to include several general officers as well. So I was very fortunate in that I applied for jobs, but I really didn't apply for jobs. They just told me, this is your next job, right? So I went through the process, but they selected my jobs for me. So they treated me more like a military soldier, where they got to switch their jobs every 2 years. So I was put in very difficult situations and very difficult jobs, thinking outside the box, leading major organizations, resolving several issues and problems that had worldwide impact and economy impact. And I tell you, as a young lad, I was very scared, but I knew to get ahead that I was under good hands under their mentorship. And more specifically, I did 26 years with Department of the Army. I'm an acquisition professional, level 3 certified, former contracting officer, unlimited warrant. I did things like supported the military district of Washington. Of course, you know, that's where all the military general officers, and with my military community, where I supported the White House transportation, which included things like the presidential funerals. Imagine that, you know, you plan the funerals in advance. So I planned presidential funerals, did 2 month unknown soldiers. So you see the guards walking up and down. I was responsible for that. Took care of the Third Army, Spirit of America, Army Band, White House transportation, you name it, I did it. But most notably, I did an operation called Operation Noble Eagle. And that operation, I served as the lead contracting officer in the recovery of 9/11 for the Pentagon. So I had some very unique positions and very unique, they gave me some very unique skills that allow me to advance in my career. And I wind up doing 38 years. I had a mentor, Tracy Penson. I don't know, there's a lot of people that know Tracy Penson. She was a very powerful woman who passed away. She transitioned maybe about 10 years ago now, but she was my mentor over 20 years. And she was a very powerful woman, and everybody in industry and the government knew who she was. And so she mentored me through this process. And I wind up retired from Department of Defense as one of the executives there leading the Office of Small Business Programs. 2018, I retired, came out, I started a business. You know, you get out and you say, what am I going to do now, right?
Right. Yes.
Business, I launched a consulting group, and it's AMW Acquisition Consulting Group. And I thought, you know, I'm going to come out, I'm going to do something, educate people and some things. But unbeknownst to me, I got up on April the 1st, it was April Fool's Day. And people were like, oh, she's not leaving, she's not. I said, yes, I'm leaving, I'm departing. And I launched my business on April 2nd. On April the 3rd, I had more business than I had infrastructure. It was the crazy thing. And for the first time, I got to feel what other small businesses were going through when they launched their businesses. And from there, I had to take about a 2-week pause and get my infrastructure together. And I was very fortunate because a 8A small women-owned small business company, or 8A, came along and said, Alice, we know this is difficult. Why don't you meet me in my office and we're going to put your whole infrastructure together. And 8 hours later, I had a full operational business. It was the craziest thing. I was very grateful, very thankful. But, you know, I did that for a few years. And then back in November, I was called back. One of my mentees and we mentor each other. So I really can't call him a mentee. I mentored him, he mentored me, and we pretty much followed each other's footsteps for a lot of years. And Mr. Kenyatta Wesley, he runs the Office of Government Contract Services for Administration for Family and Children. He is the executive director and head of the contract activity. He contacted me one day and said, hey, I'm standing up this organization. I need your expertise. We have a lot of young professionals who are very smart and intelligent, but they don't have enough experience. I'd like you to come in and mentor them. In addition to, I want you to serve as my advisor. And so it'd be a year in November. I told them I'll give them about 2 years. I think that's the most I can do. They brought me back as a rehired annuitant. And what that means is that you pick up where you kind of left off at. So you get a retirement check, and you also get a check that you work for. So that was the beauty of coming back. So that is what I'm doing now, serving as the advisor to the head of the contractor activity for government contract services under Administration for Family and Children.
Wow, that's a lot.
It wasn't for letting me share.
No, I appreciate that. I was actually writing down a bunch of notes, and because again, you said a lot of things that I'm sure a lot of people want to know what they are and what they mean.
Okay.
And so,
Absolutely.
you know,
I have to
Yeah.
remember to pull everything out.
No, that's okay. I wanted you to get it all out, and I appreciate that. So this is great. One thing that you mentioned, you said you're an acquisition professional level 3. What is a level 3, and how many levels are there?
Yeah, so there are 3 levels. There are qualification skill trainings that you take to be certified, what they call subject matter expert in your field. Definitely recognized in Department of Defense. I'm not sure if it's recognized in the civilian agencies, but they train you in your field at different levels. And at different levels, they mean different things, mean expertise, experience, and grade. And so level 3 was the highest level you can get as an acquisition professional. And so I was able to get to level 3, taking various courses throughout the Defense Acquisition University, which is DOD's educational university.
Okay.
And some other leadership training. They trained me very well. I spent a lot of time in school, to include, Darton Business School at University of Virginia, and I can go on and on and on. But yes, they were very, very, very big on training. So level 3 was the highest level that you can get to be certified in that particular career field. By the way, that is the 1102 series, which is contracting professional.
Okay. And then you mentioned unlimited warrant. Can you just clarify that? What it means for people?
Absolutely. And part of that training, the warrant is given to an individual who's authorized by law and statute to sign on behalf of the government, right? And they put thresholds on those warrants. So it put thresholds based on the need of the organization, based on your grade level and your education level. It was much more easier to get when I was growing up in the field. Of course, it took a lot of training. Now you have to go through tests, you go through a board, they evaluate you and so forth. But that meant that I had a limited warrant that allowed me to sign contracts and negotiation on behalf of the federal government.
Wow. Wow. Great stuff. And we appreciate that. And again, we love to have you share some of that institutional knowledge here today. That's what we're looking forward to. And so as again, in your current role now, what do you say is it that I know you're mentoring, but what are you mentoring the people to do, and how does that help benefit the small business community?
Absolutely. So majority of my background is small business. Even though I did contracting, I think I spent the last 15 years of my career in the small business office in the Department of Defense. So, in that capacity, I did a lot of things like educating the department. I was one of the first to actually in the Department of Defense to try to put a small business professional career field together. It didn't make it through the system, but we at least got training in the Defense Acquisition University and so forth. In my current position, what I do, I advise the acquisition community. These are the people in the contracting field who works directly for the head of the contracting activity in the contracting office. These are contract specialists, procurement analysts at the highest level, starting at GS-15 below. And what I do is assist and advise them on different situations as relates to strategy building, looking at and resolving issues as relates to contracting. Also just advising them on their personal careers and just being a safe space for the staff to come to deal with issues when they're having. A lot of times, you work all day and you just need someone to bend the ear to when it comes to whether it's something professional, educational, or just work related. So I do those things, and I hope I'm doing it well. It'll be a year in November, and they've already asked to extend me. So I think I'm doing something right. So
Okay.
I'm very appreciative of that. But it's people like myself who have come up in the career field, who have various skill sets, worked in various type of operations, different organizations, and they're thinking outside the box and being very innovative and creative to make sure they award the best contracts possible to support the organization, the mission, and the economy, whether it's large or small. But what I can say for the Health and Human Services, they have an awesome small business program and an awesome contracting office as well. At the administration for family and children specifically. Now, the small business office support the whole HHS. We just support administration for family and children. But we have a very powerful organization in that the people there are very well educated. They're very experienced in their field, and they really understand how to put acquisitions together and supporting small businesses as well. I can currently say right now, last year, the organization probably been stood up, GCS, that is, for about 2.5 years, going on 3 years. And I think this year we're probably going to do very well with our small business goals. So every organization are issued small business goals. Shannon makes sure that happens. He's responsible for the whole HHS. But we did like 1 goal out of 5 last year, and we're now projected, at this point about 4 out of 5. So we're very small business friendly. And one of the things that Mr. Wesley, who is the HCA and executive director, does so well is that he meets with industry, and he also allow his division directors and key leaders meet with industry as well. And so that's the first time I've ever seen that done in the 38 years of my career, where you actually have contracting officers and customers, what we call mission partners, in meetings together, meeting with industries by way of introduction.
Wow. That's and for clarity, Administration for Children and Families is one of the operating divisions under HHS.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
Fair enough. And for everyone who's listening to this, because I did have on here, I do have a cheat sheet next to me. I don't have this kind of information in my brain, but I did interview Wayne Barry from HHS, who broke down there's 11 operating divisions and 27 institutes and centers under NIH. So I did want to, if for those of you who missed that episode, go back and listen to the episode we did with Mr. Wayne Barry, where we talked about the different operating divisions, institutes, and centers, specifically the contracting shop. So
Correct.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So
yeah,
go ahead. You were going to say something?
No, I'll let you finish.
Yeah, no. So with that said, let's talk about some of your prior experiences and working with the small business community. And what were some of the things that you saw that small business did well? What were some of the things that you thought that maybe we lacked or we can improve on? Right? Because people want to know where, a lot of people are saying that it's difficult, the markets are saturated, right? So what do you say to that?
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I was so excited about coming back is because I've now experienced both sides, been on the outside and, coming back on the inside. And, I get the opportunity to continue to educate industry and also educate the contracting community as well. What I find is that the challenges, small businesses not keeping up with current rules and regulations. They're not following the money. They don't know how to present themselves. And, typically what happens, they get in and they continue to be very successful with 1 or 2 contracts, and they continue to do the same thing. They don't do their homework. They don't understand the issues and problems of the organizations. They're not bringing solutions to the table. They're not having the right people at the table. They're not making sure that their presentations are correct. I see a lot of things, but what I want to say, and these are the things that I notice, but I can say that there are a lot of qualified small businesses out there that are doing awesome, doing great jobs, and that's because they were prepared. Starting with legislation, looking at what is current today, what are some of the legislation that's changing that's going to impact the economy and small business. One of the key areas that I see people challenging, that's challenged more, is in the category management area, right? A lot of small business don't understand it. They don't know how to participate. They don't know how to partner on it. And that's a big challenge in organizations, because a lot of organizations do use category management because they have requirements to say they must use those.
Right.
Category management being a form of strategic sourcing and a place where you can actually award multiple requirements on one contract. They typically IDIQ type contracts.
Wow. No, that's good. Let's talk about also, like you said, I mean, we know that there's clearly small businesses that are doing well. And so again, those people aren't listening to our show, right? We want to talk about how do the other small businesses, and you mentioned a lot of different things there. So let's start off with not keeping up with the rules and regulations for one,
Mhm.
right? Where would you recommend that they start doing some of that, learning that?
Yeah. You can go to OMB.
Okay.
There are policymakers for the whole federal government, but I would start right at Congress. Every day, there's tons of what is it called? It's past my mind right now, and I can't even think about it. It's a lot on my mind, I want to say, but I would just say the appropriation bills. If you
Okay.
go look at the appropriation bills, and in those appropriation bills, they're very specific and identify what agency is one going to be funded, how much going to be funded, what areas they're going to be funded in. And from there, every agency put together what I call the strategic plan or their secretary's top priorities. All you have to do is go to the agency you want, either ask, or you can just Google it. What is your strategic plan? In that strategic plan is very specific. It's going to identify what their top areas are, where their focuses are, and where the money is going. And, I tell everybody, follow the money. And so when you follow the money, you find out where that money is going to be spent at and how you as a company fit into that. Right? If you fit into that, then those are opportunities for you. So you have to know how to take those requirements in those strategic packages and make sure that you can mirror it to what it is that you can provide as a service or a commodity, right? And then you want to build your approach and your marketing around that, right? And a lot of people say, well, what if we can't find it? What if they don't have a strategic plan? Or what if I don't understand it? Because it's a lot of lingo, it's a lot of reading, there's a lot of organizations. You have to know how to dig down, but that's what the small business advocate is for. I tell everybody, the small business advocate is the entry level to any organization. And I get feedback too when people say, well, I go to small business and they don't tell me what I need, or I don't get into the door of an organization that I'm interested in and they won't let me see the program manager. Look, I tell everybody that I talk to, sometimes you have to educate the federal government as well, right? So if you've done your homework and you understand what the mission of the organization is, you know what their problems are, and you have solutions to bring, that's what you want to be able to articulate to the small business office when you go in there. And oh, by the way, you always want to take an opportunity. So you want to do your market research and find out what opportunities are within that organization. Make sure you've done that homework and say, hey, small business office, I'm XYZ company. I understand your operation. I looked at your strategic plan. I know what your top priorities are, and I have solutions. I'm interested in responding to this particular requirement, and I will do. And by way of introduction, here's who we are. Right. And in that, you want to give them, I know Shannon, you probably heard Shannon talk all the time. When we did this in DOD, I can't take credit for it, but I helped orchestrate it. Mr. Wesley and Shannon Jackson used to always talk about these 5 slides, right? And you're going to hear Shannon talk about those 5 slides every time you talk to him. Let me tell you this, those 5, he's on point though. Those 5 slides are so important. I've seen companies come in and they bring 20-page presentation, 30 pages presentation. What you're going to do with 30 pages of presentations for 30 minutes or even 15 minutes, right? Your 5 slides, you want to do a bottom line or front approach. You want to have your acts on that first chart. What is your acts? Why are you here? You want to be able to tell the government why you're here. Then you want to be able to explain, this is the experience I have. You want to identify the opportunities in the past performance related to why you're here. Right? Then you could talk about who you are, your organization structure. But you want to get that right up front, because that's what's going to grab the attention of the decision makers right away.
And that's the 5 slides that you just mentioned?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure because I have heard Shannon talk about the 5 slides. He spoke at our conference last year, and he brought that up on stage. But for the people that are listening who didn't have the privilege of hearing him talk, I just want to make sure we went over it. So slide number 1 is?
Yes. Slide number 1 is a bottom line or front approach. You want to have your acts right away. What is your acts? Why are you here?
Okay.
And give you an example, we're XYZ company. We've done our homework. We've looked at your strategic plan. We know your focus areas. We identify a couple of opportunities that we're interested in. You want to name those opportunities on that slide. We're interested in getting in front of decision makers, right? And here's the experience, second chart. Here's the experience that we have related to this opportunity. And you want to talk about your past performance experience and then your solutions you bring into the table. And then the rest of a couple of slides, you talk about your organization, your structure. Okay. Does that make sense?
That makes sense to me. So organization is last. Let's get it out right in the beginning, right? Why are we here?
Okay. Why are we here?
Why are we here?
Because people spend a lot of time, here's my organization structure. We 8A, we this, we that, we that. And then you lost all this time and now you got 5 minutes to say why you're here, right? So you want to tell why you're here up front.
Right.
Why are you here to see these folks? Why does it matter?
Right. Okay.
Because for one, you're going to send your capability statement in advance. Every government agency going to say, send me your 1-page capability statement. So we already know you 8A, service disabled, hub zone, or whatever your statuses are.
Okay.
You get one shot to say why you're here to make a difference.
Let me ask on that note. So is going back to, you gave a couple examples, right, of what people you've seen in the past that did not align with the 5 slides. You mentioned people come with 20 slides. What are some of the other things that you've seen that people do that we can improve?
Yes. Some of the things that I've seen, they don't have the right people at the table. So you want to make sure that the person who is speaking has a full understanding of the company and the organization that you're interested in visiting, right?
Okay.
It's okay to have your technical folks around the table, and it's okay to call on your technical folks. But, when you get, especially when I look at administration for family and children, and I'm so impressed to see how Mr. Wesley have all his division directors in that meeting. And so we're talking everybody, every level at a GS-15. These are decision makers, right? So you want to make sure that you have the right person talking on your behalf when you're talking to people at this level, or you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them. And what they can remember you by is the person with the 20 slides or didn't have the right people talking on their behalf. That's what you will be remembered by. No matter how good you are, what your experience is, that's what they're going to remember.
Yeah. It's the reason why I do this is because it's really hard to get training on these things outside of this type of context.
Sure. I understand.
Right. And
yeah,
where would you go to learn this type of stuff? I mean, it just really is difficult for us.
It is very difficult. I don't think people give the Small Business Administration enough credit. They also have revamped and have some outstanding leaders over there. One of my ex-colleagues, Jackie Robertson Burnett, is there, and she's doing some tremendous things in reforming the small business process, right? Everybody that's in the 8A program should have a business development person, but there are other resources out there. It's the Apex Accelerator. They're out there. Minority Business Development Agency, they're out there. There are a lot of free resources that I don't think people take advantage of, where they can go and ask questions. They have a lot of folks that either for former government employees that are running these organizations, and we're well experienced in providing advice and guidance. So I think people don't use those resources enough. I think most of the time, what I find, especially when you first get your 8A, they tell you get your 8A and the clock starts today, which I 100% agree. I was been always trouble for a lifetime, and SBA might get me for this, but I always said, you give the person an 8A certification, but you don't train them. Right. And so they get one contract and they do that contract for 4 years, and then they up their other 4 years almost up, and now they can't compete. Right. I used to come up with these little ideas, and sometimes people hear me, sometimes people don't. But I think there has to be some form of training in the beginning where people, or at least they run some type of pilot of something where you have like companies that's in the 8A program get to compete on certain requirements so they know how to compete. I say your socioeconomic status is a tool. It's a tool. Everybody should always out the gate, I don't care whether you're 8A hub zone or a small business, be able to compete first, right? So when you compete, then you use your socioeconomic status as a way for them to get you. So when you learn how to compete, you learn how to write proposals and you learn how to price. If you can write and price, you're going to win every time. When you look at, I always tell a small business, when you look at a requirement and you see it and you say, oh my God, that's a great fit for my company. You're saying that because you recognize that you have the skill sets, the technology and the ability to do that particular requirement. All you have to do is write to it and price to it. That's it. So I feel like, in any program, any status program, you should be able to learn how to compete right out of the gate, because that clock ticks so fast. And before you know it, you get one contract and you say, yeah, I got a contract. And then you turn around and look around, 4 years is gone, that contract is over. What are you going to do now? Right? And even if they give you a follow-on contract, that's another 4 years, that's 8 years, you're out the program. Now you got to compete. I don't think that small business, some does it very well. I've seen some great relationships. I mentor a lot of companies have really done a great job and very successful today. But I don't think small business understand how to market themselves to other like businesses or large businesses. Because, in this economy and today, you have to learn how to team and partner. And Small Business Administration have put out many, many rules and regulations to allow opportunities for teaming, even subcontracting. And so I don't think businesses understand enough, small businesses understand enough how to do that. They just like, I'm a small business, partner with me. Well, what do you bring to the table? Like, why am I, as a small business or large business, want to work with you, or a light business want to work with you? I need to understand how we can work together and what do we have in common and what is like. What do we do that's alike? Or even if we did something different, you going after one part, I'm going after another, and we put it together, right? So, Shannon always talk about courting a relationship too. I know I'm using Shannon a lot, but Shannon and I work very closely together over the years. As we looked at the Mentor Protege program. I ran the program at Department of Defense and was very instrumental in helping that program shape the regulations and policies involved around it. And Shannon came after me and he took it over. But it's like courting. A lot of times people don't want to court. They just say, hey, they got the work, I want to go work with them. And they have no idea why they want to work with somebody. So understand what your value is and what you bring to the table, and be able to market and sell that to the people that you want to work with. It's no different than selling yourself to the government.
I love what you said. I actually think the same thing. I believe that you should be certified on competency before you get 8A, and your ability to actually know how to navigate.
I think you froze for a few minutes. So I think I missed something.
I said I agree with you 100%. As I believe that people should be certified on terms of their competency and understanding of the 8A program before they actually be awarded 8A. Sort of like like any other type of career, a nurse or a doctor, or not necessarily a doctor, but more like a trade, or like you said, go to some classes and learn how to do the program first as a qualification, as an eligibility to actually be receiving your 8A certification. So
Right.
I wholeheartedly agree with that.
That's just my little pet peeve. I'm not saying it's the only way, because SBA has done some tremendous things in helping people. I think it's called 7J program, where they actually have contracted out with people that come in and actually go to facilities of small businesses to help with their accounting systems and applications and all kind of stuff. So there are things that they're doing, and I just don't think businesses are getting it. They get in, and what they want to do is right away just go bid on something or be entitled to something. Where's my contract? I got my 8A, right? And I wanted, I came back because I want to educate as much as possible. And even in industry, I'm retired, but I'm not retired, right? So, I wanted anything that I can offer that help. And I'm not saying that everything I say is right, but I have a lot of experience in this. And I've seen a lot of things evolve and a lot of people change, and a lot of statutes created and so forth. And I've been part of this process for now almost 40 years. So, I have a passion for this, and my goal is to make sure that people are educated in how to do the best they can do and get these contracts while still allowing the government to do it efficiently and also to save money, right? And so that's the thing, you know, we want success stories. A lot of times we don't know how to tell our story. We have a lot of successful people out there that don't know how to tell their story. And the government is always looking for success stories. What did you do, 8A Company, that made you so successful over the last 15, 20 years? I have a mentee that I mentored while I was in over 18 years. And I just got word this week, they just got awarded a $12.1 billion contract. And so, and that's a proud moment for me because, you know, they did everything that they were trained to do, you know, following the process. As a small business advocate, you know, they would come to me and say, hey, we on this track, we on that track, we've done this, we checked the box on this. And now, you know, I look at their success and it's incredible. And it's because they put in the work, they did their homework, and they were patient. And so what you heard me say, over 18 years, this company has been getting to the point where now they're a big name in the federal government. So,
wow, that's incredible. I like that a lot. Let's talk about some of those changes that you've seen over the 4 years. Have there been any changes that, like you said, have found a way to make it either easier or harder for small businesses over that time? I know you mentioned teaming arrangements and things like that. They've created new programs. I remember when they introduced the All Small Mentor Protege program.
yes,
I remember that was introduced.
absolutely. Right.
By the way, just so you for context, I've been around since 2009 in this industry. So
Okay.
I've
So, you know,
seen some, I've
yeah,
seen some of the stuff happen.
yeah, you know,
Um,
you know, every change, you know, I want to believe that it's always a good change. So anytime you see a change, there's a change because a result of something else that went bad, basically. So
okay.
government is always trying to find ways and instituting programs or statute or legislation that support the current state of the economy. So it just depends, you know, how the economy is moving, depends on, you know, and I don't talk politics at all, but it just depends also the administration, right? And so I think people need to, when those legislations and new policies and statutes come out, take heed to them, get to understand them. SBA travels around the world and they participate on so many conferences, introducing all kind of policies and legislation, and they break them down. Like they don't just say, here's the policy dated such and such, it came out. Their lawyers are awesome. They would give you the pros and cons and they will break those legislations down so you have a full understanding of how it benefits you or how it don't benefit you. But I want to believe that everything that we put in place for the benefit of the organization and the economy, and specifically small business. I don't think any rules or regulation have been put in place to hurt any small business. I still find, and I'm going to reiterate this again, that I see most challenging to me is just businesses are not keeping up with the rules and regulations and how it impacts them.
Okay. No, and I agree. And what do you say when they say that, hey, I'm trying to run a business and trying to grow a business, and then you want me to follow the rules? What do you say to
Well, you know,
that?
I tell a lot of people it's you know, that's the most complicated thing to do. You know, me being on the outside as well as a small business owner. But I've always kept in my mind, and this is what I train, you can't work on your business if you're working in your business, right? So if you're small business and you just starting, you got one FTE or two FTEs, and you are one of those FTEs working in an organization, how are you going to run everything else about your business? So I think business structure is very important. And so you got to know what your role is going to be, and you have to make those decisions very quick and very fast. And you got to live by those rules. You cannot, as a business owner, break your own rules. So if you set something in place, that's what it has to be. It is challenging. It is tough, right? And so if this is your only stream of income, I understand you have to work that one FTE. You know, I see a lot of small businesses that retire and they open their business and go back and work for the government, and they 1099 themselves. And many of them don't even know what that means. I'm just 1099 myself, and I don't have to pay benefits because I still get my benefits. I retired, but they don't understand how to take that 1099 and expand it to something that will help grow your business. If I'm a 1099, and I tell people all the time, if I'm going to work for a company and I'm 1099, and I've worked in a year or two, and I got great experience, and my performance evals are awesome. Instead of them giving me a bonus, I'm going to ask for another FTE, right? And get that FTE and work in that business, because that's what is cheaper for the organization, for the company you're working for. They don't have to pay your benefits.
Right.
You're responsible for the FTE that you bring in. But if you 1099 them, you don't have to worry about them until you get up to 50 employees. Then you got a concern because you got to do insurance. So I think it's the mindset change. You want to grow your business, you can take that experience that you have as a 1099 worker and really operate as a business instead of operating as an employee.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, because when we think about 1099, we think about employee, right?
Right.
Not as a 1099 contractor is what it says.
Right. Correct.
So you're technically a contractor, not an employee. And so people,
Correct.
they use those word contract employee, they blend it. And
Right.
that goes back towards what you're saying about the mindset. If you blend the words, then you're only looking at yourself in that here, when
Right.
you're really up here and you're getting, like I said, past performance that you can
Correct.
use and quals that are recent and relevant to, actually
Correct.
growing your business
Absolutely.
organization.
It just it's a suggested way to help grow your business, right? When you don't have anything else. But I think most importantly, right out the gate, you have to understand or make decisions on how you want to run your business, right? And so you can't run your business if you're down there working. There are things you got to understand. You got to make decisions. You got to talk to people. You got to go out and introduce yourself. You got to market. You got to run, payroll and all this other stuff. But if you're busy working in your business, who's doing everything else? So business structure is very important, and you got to think about that and do it right away.
What other, and again, I know, like I said, with 40 years, you've seen a lot of stuff. You shared one story. Can you share another story of someone, without giving any names, of someone that you've seen do it the right way?
Yeah, it's just so many that have. I've seen where 8A companies have partnered with larger companies, and they flip relationships. So they 8A go as the prime. They use their backdoor system for everything else, working with with the large company. They get trained. It's similar to the mentor protege program. They get trained, they get certifications, they do all this stuff, and then they flip the relationship at some point when you graduate from the 8A program. I've seen that work very, very well. But that means that you have to understand who you're working with, build an office of trust, and be open to being able to be working together as a company. Prime and sub and prime.
Oh, no, that's great. Again, we've touched a lot on small businesses. What are some of the things that you've seen with large businesses? What are some of the differences, right? Because let's say I'm small, we're graduating, we're not large like the billion-dollar companies, but we're not small anymore. What are some of those things that
you're small until you're large, right?
Right.
And so I know you want to use that term, mid-tier. There's no such thing. Okay?
I know.
I can see it in your brain already.
This is the term that they use.
Yeah, you're small till you're large, but I absolutely
You
understand.
understand.
Yeah, I do understand what you're talking about. It's very challenging. When I say challenging, is very, very challenging. I've seen large businesses more so in the lifetime that I've been in the federal space, willing and openly working with smalls today, right?
Right.
They putting in processes, they going to these conferences looking for small businesses and wants to team with small businesses. Now they have their own parameters, right? But I'm excited to see that at least trying to work with small businesses willing to educate. But I go back to the small business, like you got to be ready. You got to be on your A game. You got to know what the A game look like, because these large companies are not going to just work with anybody. They're going to work with people who are ready. Now, you brought up one point, and I can actually say, just lost my train of thought. We're talking about large businesses. I can't remember.
We were talking about mid-tier.
Right.
And you didn't answer that word. You said you're small until you're large, and then that's it.
Right. Well, I'm not going to say mid-tier because there's no such thing, but I know there are, advocates out there, associations that represent that category of thresholds, and I work very closely with them as well. Again, one of the best things that they've learned how to do is being able to compete. And competition is the most important thing, right? So they have to be able to identify their concept, their structure and such that larger companies want to work with them. And it goes back to what they bring to the table, right? They can't compete with the large. They just can't. There's no way. It's not even heard of. But I think they're doing better. And I think they're doing better because they've been around enough and they're working with each other better. And so what they're doing, the larger, smaller companies are working more together, right? They're teaming more. They're going after large requirements as a group instead of trying to do it as an individual. So I think that has been very successful, and they're doing very well in that category. But also then it required, these large companies to look and see that, hey, they're doing some well. Maybe we'll go partner with them, especially when they're winning the contracts, right? So again, I mean, there are a lot of opportunities. What happened is, what I see, and I have a very, very good friend that I worked with over the years, and I mentor them for a very long time, who is in that category. And they've done very, very well with where they're at. But they don't change the mindset. So what happened is they won a lot of contracts way back when, right? And they were the originators of that contracts, and they had the contract for 15 years. Now you don't outgrown small business, the categories of small business, right? But you want to keep the contract.
Right.
And then you write to the government and say, hey, we've had it for 15 years, and we want to keep it. We want to keep the integrity of the requirement, and we don't want to break in service. And they justify their point very, very well. But at the end of the day, you got it because you got that contract as one of those socioeconomic statuses. Now it's somebody else's turn, right? And so again, it's like, know when you grow, like understand at some point you had it, reach back and partner with those companies, so socioeconomic companies that's willing to go after these requirements, who understand it as well, and then you become their sub.
Yeah, a lot of people don't want to be. They don't
want to do that.
Right. Yeah.
But don't you agree that getting some of the work is better than not getting none of the work?
No, I wholeheartedly agree. And again, I've sat in some of those roundtables with that group of business owners, and so yeah, I'm well aware, and that's an issue that they all kind of share in the same. But no, I mean, nevertheless, we don't want to harp on the point, but I did want to address that to see what your thoughts were.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I have thoughts on everything. I'm not saying I'm the expert on everything, but I do have an opinion because I've been around for a while.
That's what we want to hear, right? Tell me, on your profile, you list mergers and acquisitions.
Yes. So when I came out of the federal government, I was working very closely with Miss Jackie Robinson Burnett, who was working with Live Oak Bank at the time. And their responsibility was to assist 80 companies or small companies that were interested in selling their business, actually through the merger on their behalf. And so I was a consultant with them at the time and kind of dabbed in it a little bit as a consultant.
Well, it's interesting. I've done some stuff at Live Oak Bank as well. and
Mhm.
Jackie Robinson will be on the show next month. So
Where is she?
yes,
I
yes.
s-
And I will say this, she's also speaking at our event in November in Miami.
where is she? She
Yes.
is so dynamic. Let me tell you my relationship with Jackie Robinson Burnett. I love her so much. She's actually one of my great friends. We're very, very close. So we watched our children grow up together. Jackie used to be my deputy. I convinced her to get into small business. She was running an intern program for Army Contracting Agency at the time at the Hoffman Building. And I can remember going over and doing a review, and in 15 seconds, this lady impressed me so much. I walked into her office and I walked out and I walked back in. I said, "Are you interested in a job?" And she basically said, "Oh no, I love my interns. I can't leave my interns." I said, "It's doing something different, kind of similar, but you're working with small businesses." And eventually it was a hard decision for her to make, but eventually she applied for the job and actually got the job and then superseded me, right? So we were very, very good friends. We mentored each other, and most important, she's a very spiritual person like I am, and we prayed together a lot, right?
Mm.
And so I depended on her a lot. We have similar personalities. I'm a ISTJ, she a ENTJ. And so our personality like, but she was more open. She's extroverted and I was
Right,
introverted,
right,
right?
right.
But we did a lot of major acquisitions together in terms of helping promote small businesses during a time when we were standing up organizations and shaping the small business community under the leadership of Miss Tracy Penson. So
Oh,
Jackie is a pleasure to work with. I love her dearly, and she's one of the smartest people that I know. It's been a pleasure to work alongside with her. I always told her, "You the boss of me."
oh, that's great. And thank you for sharing that. We as we're running up on time, a couple things I want to make sure we cover. One, and I will is also, tell us about, you mentioned you watch your kids grow up together. Tell us more about your family.
Yes, I'm born and raised in Alexandria, Virginia. So here
Okay.
in that area. I live in Maryland, but I'm born and raised in Alexandria, Virginia. It's a very small city, known as Old Town Alexandria today, but very well known by T.C. Williams High School in the movie Remember the Titans. So I'm a T.C. Williams High School grad. I graduated in 1980. Coach Boone, who was the star of that show, played by Denzel Washington, used to be my gym teacher.
Wow.
And yeah, I got a lot of history over there. I love my city. I'm a Titan forever. My parents still live there. They're in the Potomac Yard area. And so my parents are still living. I'm very fortunate to have them with me still today. I caretake for them as well. But my parents are there, and I visit Alexandria. I'm at the National Harbor, so I travel to Alexandria quite often. I have
Okay.
3 children. I'm very blessed. My children, I can talk for a lifetime about my children. I have a daughter, she's my oldest, she's 36 years old, and she's a split image of me, smarter than me, business owner as well. And she pretty much when I wasn't in the Fed running my business on my behalf, and that's what she's doing today, running my business while I'm working for the federal agency. It's not in my business. As a matter of fact, it's her business now. So,
There you go. There
so
you go.
right. So she's the entrepreneur. I'm working for her at some point, right?
There you go.
I have 2 sons and a daughter, a beautiful daughter-in-law. I have 2 grandchildren. One is 16 and the other one is 8. My granddaughter is the world champion for double dutch. She cheers for the double dutch team in Washington, D.C., and they world champions. And will appear on the Tamron show sometime in December.
Okay.
She's a 3-time champion cheerleader, competitive cheerleading sport as well. My grandson, 16, playing basketball, does AAU and other stuff. They athletes, so they
Right.
keep grandma very, very busy, right?
Okay.
And I'm still single, by the way, and I spent a lot of time doing concerts and traveling. That's my two favorite things to do. And I travel all over the world for a good concert and a good meal, believe it or not.
Where are some of the places you've been?
uh, where some of the places I have not been. So let's
Okay.
start with Africa.
Well, okay. Now you go. Where's some places I have not been? Where? Okay, let's change it. How far have you traveled for a concert? How's that?
Oh, for a concert, I have not traveled overseas yet for a concert, but I
Okay.
will.
Okay.
Not too far concert wise, just West Coast or Chicago, somewhere
Okay.
like it. It just depends. I'm an old school girl, so I like the oldie but goodies, stylistics. I grew up with my parents. I'm 20 years younger than my parents. So I grew up with my
Mm,
parents and I grew up off of music and hand dancing and that kind of stuff. So
okay.
uh, they taught me a lot in the music industry. So I'm a music lover. And
Uh-huh.
I love live bands. I don't like all that, bebop stuff. Give me a live band, I'm enjoying myself 100%.
That's
My
awesome.
favorite place to travel is Las Vegas, and I'm going to be traveling the next few weeks for my birthday. That's on the 21st of September.
Mm,
And I don't go for the gambling because I'm right here at the National Harbor. I have a casino here. I don't go for the
mm,
gambling. It's something about Vegas and the food and the entertainment that I love. It's a different kind of atmosphere. So I
absolutely.
traveled to Vegas for that.
No, absolutely. I agree. There's so much stuff to do in Vegas. You don't have to gamble. I don't know why people think.
I don't have a clue. People don't have a clue all the hidden spots
I've
in
been to
Vegas.
Vegas, I don't know, 2 dozen times without ever going into a casino gambling. I mean, we go to
Right.
casinos
Me
because you stay in
too.
hotels, but not
Right.
you walk through them. But it's
I try not to stay at a casino. I have timeshare there and I typically stay at my timeshare. My timeshare takes me across the country.
mm,
But I try not to stay at the casino because I don't go for the casino. I
right,
actually go, I plan on going to a football game when I'm there. I'm a
right.
big sports fan. I'm a Commanders fan, by the way.
Okay,
I'm all everything DC, trust me.
okay, okay, okay.
Wizards, Commanders, you name it. I'm
Sure.
I'm right here with my home team sport. Big fan.
Okay. No, that's good. You got roots there. You got history there. That's
I
great.
do. Yeah. My father was a referee for over 50 years. So he did refereeing for high school and recreational. He also was my basketball coach, my baseball coach. He wanted me to be a boy so bad. He had me in all kind of sports.
Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have a younger sister and an older brother.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I'm the middle child.
he wants you to be
Yeah.
the boy.
He wanted me to be a boy so bad.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
so he just threw me into sports. And then one day I told my mother, I want to cheer. So I wind up cheering
Mhm.
and became captain of the cheerleader squad. So did that for a while.
You had a very busy upbringing, and then you went right into work.
I did. I did. My parents, since they were also government workers,
Mm,
and they instilled in me very early. I went through all the government, city government programs where you can start working at age 14 under your certification as long as your parents sign for you. And so I started early, like at age 14, I started working. Can't remember not ever having a job.
wow.
And I look at the kids today and I tell my grandson, he's 16, where are you gonna go get a job? Where are you gonna go get a job?
You sound like my mom. My mom.
He's like, Grandma, I'm playing sports. You don't want to work.
But
I wanted to work at age 14 because
absolutely.
I love clothes. I was a professional model when I was a teenager.
Mm.
And so I was in the fashion. So I love clothes. So I knew my parents were gonna buy me those expensive clothes. I had to work.
Right. No, that's great. No, I like that. I like that. So thank you for sharing, by the way. Going back, you said you went through a lot of trainings and a lot of learning, a lot of education. Sounds like obviously you were okay with it, right? Because you progressed through the ranks.
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah.
think you have to have it, especially the leadership training. What I find is people accelerate in their government jobs so quick, they forget about going back for the training. And especially the higher you get in grade level and structure, the more leadership training and skills that you need because you're dealing with people. So if you're not training in that area, how are you going to manage people?
Yeah, no, that's true. Are there any type of trainings that you did, like books that you were given that you would recommend to other people?
Yes, my mentor gave me a book. She called me in her office one day and she said, "Here, read this." And that was Tracy Penson. The book was named Lean In. I'm trying to think of who it's by. Oh, she's the wife of the software guy. It's
Lean
called
in,
Lean.
lean in.
Yes, Lean In.
Okay.
Very good leadership book that help women, right? It shows women leadership roles, where their place is at in terms of leadership, the equity of being a leader as a woman.
Okay. I'm looking
There are
for
so
one.
many books. Can't remember them all right now, but that was the one I do remember because it was gifted to me by her.
Lean in, women work and will to lead.
Yes, that's the book.
All right. Sheryl Sandberg.
That's her name. Oh, I feel so bad. I should have remembered that.
That's okay. I'm sure Sheryl Sandberg. All right. I like it. Okay. Lean in, women work and the will to lead. Found it. Good stuff. Okay. Any quotes that you operate by, any sayings that maybe that you tell your kids or that your parents told you growing up that you can remember?
Um, I'm not a quote person. My current supervisors got trillions of quotes, but I'm a businesswoman, and
Okay.
everything I do, I think about business. I think about generational wealth and legacy, and I'm always instilling in my kids about wealth. I'm teaching them how to build our family trust. And there was a quote by John Rockefeller. And that quote basically states that own nothing but control everything, right? And so I always tell people we so quick to want to own everything, put everything in our names. And, that leads to the opportunity to get sued and money taken and all kind of stuff. But if you set up your access and in a trust, then you don't have to worry about that. You don't own your trust, you control your trust. And so that is what I'm teaching my children.
I like it. I like it. Uh, is there, I mean, I know you worked a lot of jobs. Or is there any odd jobs that you worked at we might not guess?
So there was one job that I was not prepared for, but it was the best experience that I ever had. And it was early in my career, but I'm still a leader. And they had just introduced the government purchase card program. And it was in distress at the time. It was an Army program at the time, and it was in distress. We didn't have, it was a material weaknesses under the Army program. We didn't have enough rules and policies and regulations in place. And I can remember one of my mentors coming into the office and he said, "Alice, I need you to do me a favor." I said, "Yes, sir. What do you need?" And he said, "We're having some issues with one of our programs and we want you to take it over for a while." He said 2 weeks. That's what he said to me. And so 2 weeks stuck in my head.
Uh-huh.
He wants you to take it over for about 2 weeks until we identify someone that can take the position. But at the time, there was a lot of misuse and abuse and a lot of stuff going on. So, and I didn't even know anything about government purchase card program. I knew it was a credit card. There were some rules around it, and they put me in that job. And 3.5 years later, 3 years I was in that position trying to establish rules and implement policies and things like that, to the point it took about 2.5 years to get it out of the Army program as a material weakness. But that was my goal. Once I realized what the problem was and what I need to do, is just putting the right process and procedures in place to make sure it gets done. And I always want to finish a job. So I was adamant about, after I knew I was only supposed to be in there for 2 weeks and it was 3 years, like, no, I got to finish this. So I was very proud to leave the program. And I left that program and went straight into the small business program, believe it or not.
Okay. You fixed it and you went on, moved on.
Moved on to something bigger and better.
Okay. No, I like that.
Yeah.
You said you're a business person. Is there a current public CEO that you admire?
Um, yes. Oh, what is his name? Oh, I have to Google him. Yes, he runs a company, he owns a company called Vista. I'm trying to think his name. You probably know him, but he was the one that did the merger and acquisition on Google and Yahoo. What was his name? Uh, I should bump my head against the wall for not remembering his name.
It's about Robert Smith.
Oh my God. I should be shot not to know that. Yes, Robert Smith is
Okay,
his name. So, and I don't know why I forgot his name. It's just I had a brain fart for a second, but
that's okay.
I followed Robert Smith for years, watching all his interviews, watching all his webinars. Every time he speak, I would Google it, and I would spend late nights, like almost all night, just studying him and why he was so powerful and the decisions that he made and how he made decisions. I admire the man. I think he's a very smart man and done some very great things as related to business. And he's taught me a lot in business. So he's one of the people that I looked up to. He don't even know I admire him. He don't even know who I am.
We never know. We might. It's
He don't
hey,
even know.
he doesn't know today, but we have it on recording. So, maybe somebody is sending this episode and they'll put it on his desk and he'll hear it.
Maybe.
So if
I'm
you,
sure there are a lot of people that admire him though, but he's a very intelligent man. Like this, just to listen to how he got started and that big merger that he did that people thought was impossible to do. The man is a genius when it comes to business finance.
nice. If you had a billboard that the world could read, what would you put on it?
Oh my God, you asked all the complicated
I,
questions.
I just ask questions that make you think. I'll give you a second. We'll sit back. I'll drink some tea.
Oh, okay. I'm just thinking about my billboard up in New York somewhere that's going to be highlighted, and I don't think about words. I think about my face on it, right? So people can look like, who is that person up there on the billboard?
Right. And it's gonna
I know.
say, it could say something spiritual.
It could. It could say something spiritual. But even spiritual will leave an everlasting memory, but it has to be something like, oh my God, so I don't even want to say this, but I'm gonna give you your name. It's not even a quote. So I do have a social media name, right? And
Okay.
I don't even like the social media name. Somebody gave it to me, and somebody give your name and just stick with you,
Hmm.
right? So I can see my face up in New York Times Square billboard, and on it it'll say Queen of the DMV. And everybody gonna look and say, who is that? Right? That would be me.
That's you.
That would be
Queen of the
me.
DMV. I'll take it. I'll take it. No, I'll take it. And then if you could just, say some parting words for the people listening.
No, I first of all want to thank you, Eric, for the opportunity again. It's been a pleasure. You could have chosen anybody to speak today, and people that are way more knowledgeable and more experienced than I am. So I appreciate the opportunity very humbly, and I'm glad I had an opportunity to come on and just to give just a few words of what I would say wisdom, right? My last parting words would be whatever I say today or what you have heard today, take what you can use and what you can't use, just leave it at the pulpit.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And
Thank
again,
you.
it's a pleasure. And I thank Shannon for introducing us and connecting us. And you definitely did not disappoint.
Thank you
So
so much. I appreciate you all.
thank you. And
Thank
I'm
you.
happy to know that you and Jackie are close. And I will make sure.
We
In fact,
are. Tell
let's do
Jackie I
this.
said hello.
Let's do this because I didn't get it last session. So, and I'm going to tell Jackie you said hello, but I will also want to have you leave a question that we're going to give for Jackie's interview. So we'll do
Yes, I
that.
can do
We'll
that.
do that
I can
after
do
the,
that.
okay? All
Absolutely.
right. Thank you so
Yes.
much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Take
Have a wonderful
care.
day.